The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports for my hospitality empire. Victoria, my sister's wedding planner, had always spoken to me like I was some kind of charity case that the family had to drag along to events. Listen, Maya. Victoria's voice dripped with fake sweetness through my phone speaker. I've been talking with your family and we've all decided that your presence at Emma's wedding might be, well, let's say disruptive to the aesthetic we're going for. I set down my coffee and leaned back in my leather chair, looking out at the city skyline from my corner office. I see. And what exactly makes you think my presence would be disruptive? Well, she laughed nervously, it's just that this is a very upscale event. The Grandview Manor is the most exclusive venue in the state. The guest list is full of society people, business leaders, politicians. Your family is concerned that you might feel out of place. The Grandview Manor. My family had been bragging about booking this venue for months. They had no idea that I'd bought it 2 years ago as part of my expansion into luxury event venues. So you're suggesting I don't attend my own sister's wedding? I asked calmly. It's not that we don't want you there, Victoria continued, her voice getting more confident now that I wasn't arguing. It's just that your family thinks it might be better if you stayed home. You could watch the live stream. We're having a professional videographer capture everything. I almost laughed. A live stream of my own venue. Your mother mentioned that you've been struggling financially lately, Victoria added. She said you're working some kind of small job? This way, you won't have to worry about buying an expensive dress or feeling uncomfortable around all the successful guests. My small job was running Sterling Hospitality Group, a company I'd built from the ground up that now owned 15 luxury venues across 3 states, including restaurants, event spaces, and boutique hotels. But my family still thought I worked as a part-time bookkeeper for a local business because that's what I'd told them 3 years ago when I was keeping my success quiet. I understand completely, I said, keeping my voice neutral. You're right, it would probably be better if I stayed home. Oh, wonderful. Victoria sounded relieved. I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. Your family will be so pleased. Emma particularly was worried about how to handle the situation delicately. Emma. My little sister who I'd helped through college, who I'd supported when she was struggling to find her footing after graduation, who I'd quietly helped financially more times than I could count. The same Emma who apparently thought I was too embarrassing to attend her wedding. Just one question, I said. What time does the ceremony start? 6 p.m. sharp, Victoria replied. Black tie event, of course. The reception goes until midnight. It's going to be absolutely magical. I'm sure it will be, I said. Thank you for calling, Victoria. Thank you for being so understanding. I was worried this conversation might be difficult, but you're handling it so maturely. After hanging up, I sat in my office for a few minutes, processing what had just happened. My own family had decided I wasn't good enough to attend my sister's wedding. At my own venue. I pulled up the booking details for the Grandview Manor on my computer. Sure enough, there it was. Henderson wedding Saturday, October 14th, 6 p.m. midnight. The deposit had been paid in full, and they'd booked the premium package with upgraded catering, the bridal suite, and exclusive access to the gardens. My assistant David knocked on my door. Come in, I called. The contracts for the Portland acquisition are ready for your signature, he said, setting a folder on my desk. Also, your sister called earlier about confirming some details for her wedding venue. Should I transfer her to the events team? Actually, David, I need you to handle something for me, I said. I want you to compile a complete guest list for the Henderson wedding this Saturday. Cross-reference it with our client database and see how many of our regular customers are attending. David raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. Of course. Anything else? Yes. I want you to prepare a special surprise for the bride and groom. Something memorable. That evening I called my mother to confirm what Victoria had told me. Oh Maya honey, Mom said when I brought up the wedding. Victoria talked to you? Good. I was hoping she could explain things diplomatically. Explain what exactly, Mom? Well, you know how important this day is for Emma. She's marrying into the Whitmore family, their old money very established. The guest list is incredibly impressive. We thought you might feel more comfortable watching from home. Because I'm not successful enough? It's not that, sweetheart. It's just that you're in a different place in life right now. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone can be a high achiever. But Emma's wedding is really about networking and making the right impressions. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times I'd helped this family financially without them knowing. The time I'd anonymously paid off Dad's business debt when his company was struggling. The time I'd arranged for Emma to get her dream internship through one of my business contacts. The time I'd bought the house next to theirs and sold it at a loss just to keep their property values up. I understand, Mom. I'll stay home. You're such a good sport about this, Maya. Emma will be so relieved. She was really stressed about how to handle the situation. The next few days passed quickly. I made my preparations carefully, ensuring everything would be perfect for Saturday evening. On the day of the wedding, I dressed in my finest black evening gown, a custom piece from a designer whose boutique I'd discovered during a business trip to Milan. I did my hair and makeup meticulously, then drove to my own venue to watch the festivities from the security office. The Grandview Manor was stunning as always. The gardens were in full autumn bloom, and the ballroom was decorated with white roses and gold accents. My events team had outdone themselves, not knowing that the bride's sister was watching from the cameras. As guests arrived, I recognized many faces. Senator Williams, who'd hosted his daughter's engagement party at my venue in Portland. The CEO of Meridian Industries, who'd booked my flagship restaurant for his company's annual gala. Mrs. Richardson, who'd held her charity auction at my Newport location just last month. At exactly 6 p.m. the ceremony began. Emma looked beautiful in her white dress, walking down the aisle toward her fiancé Michael Whitmore. My parents beamed with pride in the front row, dressed in their finest clothes. I watched as they exchanged vows as the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, as they kissed while the guests applauded. It should have been a moment of joy for me, but instead, I felt the weight of being deliberately excluded from my own sister's biggest day. The reception began at 7:30 p.m. Dinner was served, the premium menu featuring lobster filet mignon, and a 7-course tasting experience. The wine selection was from our private reserve, bottles worth more per glass than most people spent on entire dinners. As the evening progressed, I watched my family mingle with the guests, clearly proud to be hosting such an elegant affair. Victoria, the wedding planner, fluttered around making sure everything was perfect, clearly pleased with how smoothly the event was running. It was then that I made my call to Marcus, the head of security. Marcus, it's Maya. I need you to execute Protocol 7. Are you sure, ma'am? That's going to cause quite a disturbance. I'm certain. Give them exactly 15 minutes to read and process the information. I'll be down shortly. Understood, ma'am. I watched on the security monitors as Marcus approached the head table where my family was sitting with the Whitmores. He was dressed in his finest suit, carrying an official-looking folder. Excuse me, Marcus said politely to my father. Are you Mr. James Henderson? Yes, that's me, Dad replied, looking puzzled. Sir, I'm Marcus Sullivan, head of security for Sterling Hospitality Group. I have some important documents that require your immediate attention. He handed Dad the folder. I could see confusion spreading across my family's faces as Dad opened it and began to read. The first document was the deed to the Grandview Manor, clearly showing that Sterling Hospitality Group, my company, was the owner of the property. The second was a copy of their wedding contract, which they'd unknowingly signed with my company. The third was a letter explaining that their daughter and sister, Maya Henderson, was the founder and CEO of Sterling Hospitality Group. I watched Dad's face turn pale as he read. Mom leaned over to see what was wrong, and her expression quickly mirrored his. Emma, still in her wedding dress, grabbed the papers from Dad's hands. There must be some mistake, I could see Dad saying to Marcus, though I couldn't hear the audio from my position. Marcus handed him another document, a printout of my corporate headshot from the company website, along with a full biography detailing my business achievements. The conversations at nearby tables began to quiet as word spread that something unusual was happening at the head table. Senator Williams approached, recognizing Marcus. Marcus, good to see you again, I could see the senator saying. I didn't realize Maya was hosting an event tonight. Where is she? I'd love to say hello. It was at that moment that Emma finally understood. Her sister, the one who wasn't successful enough to attend her wedding, owned the venue. More than that, Emma realized, looking around at the familiar faces from other high society events. Many of these guests knew me personally from business. Mrs. Richardson joined the conversation. Oh, is Maya here tonight? She hosted the most wonderful charity auction for us last month. Raised over $2 million for the Children's Hospital. Maya Henderson? Asked the CEO of Meridian Industries. She's brilliant. Her company transformed our annual gala into the most successful corporate event we've ever held. I could see the realization dawning on my family's faces as guest after guest mentioned knowing me, working with me, or attending events at my venues. That's when I decided it was time to make my entrance. I walked into the ballroom at exactly 9:45 p.m., just as the dancing was supposed to begin. Conversations stopped as I entered. Many of the guests recognized me immediately and smiled warmly. Hiya. Senator Williams called out, approaching with his wife. What a wonderful surprise. We had no idea you were family. Hiya, darling. Mrs. Richardson air-kissed my cheeks. This venue is absolutely spectacular. Your team outdid themselves tonight. I made my way through the crowd of guests, receiving warm greetings from business contacts and clients who knew me well. Finally, I reached the head table where my family sat in stunned silence. Hello everyone, I said calmly. Emma, you look absolutely beautiful. Congratulations on your wedding. Emma stared at me, her eyes wide. Why, we didn't know. Didn't know what? I asked gently. That you own all of this. I looked around the ballroom at the crystal chandeliers I'd personally selected, at the marble floors I'd had installed, at the gardens visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows that I'd had landscaped to perfection. Yes, I do, I said simply. I've owned the Grandview Manor for 2 years now. It's part of my company, Sterling Hospitality Group. Victoria, the wedding planner, approached our group looking mortified. Miss Henderson, I had no idea. If I had known. Known what, Victoria? I asked. That I was successful? That I belonged here? That I could afford to buy an expensive dress? She looked down at her feet, clearly embarrassed. Dad finally found his voice. Maya, we made a terrible mistake. We didn't realize. You didn't realize what, Dad? That I might have made something of myself? That I might have succeeded despite your lack of faith in me? We thought. Mom began, then stopped. You thought I was a failure, I said, not unkindly. You thought I was embarrassing. You thought I would lower the tone of Emma's wedding. The nearby guests were trying to pretend they weren't listening, but the tension at our table was impossible to ignore. Emma spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya, I'm so sorry. I never meant. I thought Victoria was just trying to keep the guest list manageable. Emma, I said, looking directly at my sister. Victoria called me because someone in this family told her I wasn't successful enough to attend your wedding. Someone decided I would be an embarrassment. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Michael Whitmore, Emma's new husband, cleared his throat. Maya, I've heard your name before. My father mentioned you. He said you were one of the most respected businesspeople in the hospitality industry. Your father would be correct, I replied. But apparently my own family didn't get that memo. I turned to address the table. I want you all to know that I harbor no ill will about this situation. But I think it's important that we all understand what happened here tonight. I gestured around the room. This venue? I built this. The catering? My team planned every detail. The flowers, the music, the photographer, the videographer, all arranged through companies I've carefully vetted and partnered with over the years. Dad looked sick. Maya, if we had known. If you had known what? You would have treated me differently. You would have included me. You would have been proud instead of embarrassed. I softened my tone. The point isn't that you didn't know about my success. The point is that you were willing to exclude me from family events because you assumed I wasn't successful enough. You made judgments about my worth based on incomplete information. Emma started crying, her makeup beginning to run. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you so much. I love you too, Emma. That's why I'm here tonight, despite everything. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. This is my wedding gift to you and Michael. Emma opened it with shaking hands. Inside was the deed to a beautiful lake house I owned in the mountains, a property worth more than most people's homes. I had planned to give this to you privately, I explained. But circumstances changed. Michael looked at the deed in amazement. Maya, this is incredibly generous. Family takes care of family, I said simply. even when family doesn't always act like family. Victoria approached again, this time with visible tears in her eyes. Miss Henderson, I owe you a tremendous apology. I should never have spoken to you the way I did. I should never have made assumptions. Victoria, you were acting on information you were given by my family. But yes, in the future, you might want to do a bit more research before deciding who belongs at high-end events. Senator Williams approached our table. Maya, I hope you don't mind the interruption, but I wanted to personally thank you again for hosting our foundation's benefit last year. The venue was perfect and your team's attention to detail was exceptional. Thank you, Senator. I'm glad everything met your expectations. He turned to my family. You should all be very proud. Maya has built something truly remarkable. Sterling Hospitality Group is setting the standard for luxury event management across the region. After the senator walked away, Dad finally spoke up. Maya, I don't know what to say. We've been terrible to you. You've been operating on assumptions, I corrected. But yes, those assumptions led to hurtful behavior. Mom reached for my hand. Can you ever forgive us? I considered the question seriously. I can forgive you. But I need you all to understand that success isn't just measured in ways you can see from the outside. I've been building something meaningful for years, and I did it quietly because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. Why didn't you tell us? Emma asked. Because I wanted to see who you all really were when you thought I was struggling. I wanted to know if you would love and support me regardless of my financial status. The painful truth hung in the air. And now you know, I continued. When you thought I was unsuccessful, you were willing to exclude me from important family events. When you thought I was struggling, you saw me as an embarrassment rather than someone who might need support. I looked around the table at my family's faces, ashamed, remorseful, and finally understanding the gravity of their actions. But here's what I want you to know, I said, my voice growing stronger. I built this company not just for financial success, but to create beautiful spaces where families can celebrate life's most important moments. I wanted to build something that would bring people together. I gestured around the ballroom. This venue has hosted hundreds of weddings, anniversaries, celebrations, and milestones. I've watched families come together to celebrate love, achievement, and new beginnings. That's what this place is for. Emma looked around the room with new eyes. You created all of this? I created a place where love is celebrated, I said. I just never imagined I'd be excluded from celebrating love in my own space. The evening continued with a much different energy than before. Many of the guests made a point of speaking with me, sharing stories of events they'd attended at my venues, thanking me for the beautiful spaces I'd created. As the night wound down and guests began to leave, my family remained at our table, clearly wanting to continue the conversation. Maya, Dad said finally, how do we make this right? You start by understanding that success comes in many forms, I replied. You start by treating people with respect regardless of their circumstances. You start by believing in family members instead of writing them off. We want to do better, Mom said earnestly. We want to be the family you deserve. I smiled for the first time that evening. That's all I've ever wanted. Emma stood up and hugged me tightly. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. And I'm so sorry I almost missed seeing how amazing you are. You didn't miss it, I told her. You're seeing it now. As the last guests departed and my staff began the cleanup process, I walked through the venue with my family, showing them details they'd never noticed before. The hand-painted ceiling murals, the custom millwork, the sound system designed for perfect acoustics. You built something incredible, Michael said, clearly in awe. I built something that matters, I corrected. Tonight proved that success without family to share it with isn't really success at all. Victoria approached us one final time. Miss Henderson, I hope you'll give me the chance to work with you again in the future. I've learned a valuable lesson tonight about assumptions and respect. We'll see, Victoria. But I appreciate your apology. As we prepared to leave, Emma pulled me aside. Maya, I have one more question. What's that? The live stream you could have watched. Does that even exist? I laughed, really laughed for the first time all evening. No, Emma. There is no live stream. That was just Victoria's way of making you feel better about excluding me. Emma shook her head in amazement. I can't believe how badly we handled this. But you can believe how well we're going to handle everything going forward. I said, linking arms with her. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the evening's events. My family had learned a painful but necessary lesson about assumptions, respect, and the true meaning of success. I had learned that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself in dramatic fashion to make people understand your worth. But most importantly, we had all learned that family, real family, supports each other regardless of circumstances, and that love should never be conditional on external measures of success. The Grandview Manor had hosted another celebration of love that night. It just wasn't the celebration any of us had expected. 3 weeks later, I received a call from Emma. "Maya," she said, "Michael and I want to plan a proper celebration, a party where you're the guest of honor. We want to introduce you properly to everyone as our incredibly successful sister and daughter." "Emma," I said gently, "I don't need a party to prove my worth." "I know," she replied. "But we need a party to prove ours." And so, 6 months later, Sterling Hospitality Group hosted its grandest event yet, a celebration of family, forgiveness, and the understanding that success is meaningless unless it's shared with people who love you for who you are, not what you've achieved. The venue? The Grandview Manor, of course. The guest of honor? Just someone who learned that sometimes you have to demand respect before you can receive love. And this time, everyone knew exactly who owned the place.